All right, Pete, before we get started with this week's wrestling perspective, wow, what a jam-packed show we have anyways. I want to start out with an ad. Let's talk about whatforapparel.com/WPP. That's where you can get our shirts. We have a bunch of shirts, Petey.
Yeah, I mean, and not only, I shouldn't say that we don't care about money because we do care about the money, but care more about where the money goes. And, the charity, everything's going to charity now. That's what we're doing. Not keeping any money for ourselves for those shirts. Anything you buy, it goes straight up to the Rainbow Connection. Dennis, you're better at talking about the Rainbow Connection. I like to call it like the little cousin of Make-A-Wish. That's what I like to say, but you do a better job at it.
Essentially, it is the little cousin of Make-A-Wish. They're a little independent charity who's out there trying to make dreams come true for kids who, I don't want to use these words, but I am, but kind of fall through the cracks that don't get their Make-A-Wish. We decided when we were going to give 100% of our proceeds to charity from our shirts that we wanted to give it to a place where our dollar would go a little bit further. Not saying Make-A-Wish isn't deserving, but when you have companies giving millions and millions of dollars to Make-A-Wish, our $20, $30, $40, $100 doesn't seem as generous. Then going over to rainbowconnection.org, where everything's on a voluntary basis, every cent counts. That's where we wanted our money to go to. And that's what you and I, PD, we sat down, we went through a bunch of charities, one of the best 501c3s out there. We decided rainbowconnection.org is where we wanted our fans' money, essentially our fans' money to go.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, the reason why we feel so passionate about this is because we're giving back to our own community. So it's like, everybody knows we live in like the Michigan, border city type area of Detroit.
Well, they do now.
Yeah, well, I mean that's where everybody knows we live, even though we live nowhere near Detroit. Well, we do, but
we're suburbs.
Suburbs of Detroit.
Yeah.
We were involved in the Detroit riots. No, not us. Yeah, but I mean, so giving it back to your own community and stuff is it just helps grow your own community.
So, we know you guys are out there buying shirts, and thank you for supporting other wrestlers. But if you buy one of our shirts, know that we will donate the money that you spend that we receive from the shirts to rainbowconnection.org. We will not see a dime of it. And we don't donate it in the name of Petey and Dennis or even Wrestling Perspective. We donate it from the fans of Wrestling Perspective. So we don't even really take credit for it either.
No, and I mean, why would we want to? It's not our money going towards the charity. So yeah, I mean, it's the fans that put into it, and we're just the ones that provide the shirts for the good cause.
Buy a shirt, wear it, let us know. You get a shout out on the podcast. You get to know that your dollar is going to help make a wish for a child. Not that make a wish, but making sure a child that is. Look, some of these kids have uphill battles to fight, and some of them don't make it, but to know that you donated and could help a child make a dream come true, it's priceless. So hopefully you guys will go out of your way and do that. So what's left, Pete?
Not much, but man, I'll tell you what, that last paragraph, that made me sad and happy at the same time. So I don't know how you did it, Dennis, but anyways, why don't we just hit the music?
It's the Wrestling Perspective Podcast. I'm Dennis Farrell, and he is the man of the hour who I felt like I've not talked to in years. My best friend, Petey Williams.
How's she going, eh?
Hey, listen, you've been MIA. Usually we talk a few times a week, through text or a phone call, through a podcast. Last week we did not get a chance to do a podcast because you were locked up at the Scott D'Amore compound.
Yeah, I was, man. I mean, it's we were writing television. That's what we were doing for Impact coming up. yeah, and I'm sorry, we didn't talk as much. It was just, it's weird because when I'm not in wrestling, my life is so not wrestling until you and I talk about wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
But that last week, it was like 4 days of just nonstop talk about wrestling, which is kind of relaxing in a sense, even though it's tough to, it's a lot tougher than everybody thinks to write a television show. Let me tell you.
This is your first time at a actual booking meeting, so we'll talk about that here in a second. Couple big things have happened since the last time we talked. AEW did another pay-per-view and announced another one back in Chicago in a few months. We might touch on that a little bit. I had a little Twitter spat with another podcast. I'm sure we'll talk about that here in a little bit. You were announced. You've talked about it several times on this podcast that you did not think this was going to actually happen. You, Scott Steiner, Jordynne Grace. Let's open the show up with a little bit of talk of that.
Yeah, so a while ago, I don't know how long ago, but Jordynne Grace posted a picture of her with her, the chainmail on the headdress, calling herself, I think, like Thick Mama Pump or something,
Yes,
as a
yes.
reference to Big Papa Pump, and I'm Little Petey Pump apparently. But she posted that, and then I don't know if she did it or a fan put the three of us together in a picture and kind of naming us. And then I got a message like a few months later from Mike Quackenbush, who, Mike Quackenbush, I believe he works for NXT right now, but he also runs Chikara. And Chikara, for those that don't know, that means power in Japanese. But I have like a Chikara shirt and all this kind of stuff. And they've been around forever. And they have this King of Trios tournament once a year. And like that's their big thing. And he just out of the blue, he said, "Hey, did you see this, picture floating around?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "How would you like to like participate in that and have it, become a reality?" And I want to say this was back in February, maybe not that long ago. Well, maybe it was that we started talking about this. And I said, "Sure." And we talked back and forth. I got him Steiner's contact info and all this kind of stuff. And I think Jordynne had like a booking conflict and all that. And then finally, he just said, "Hey, it's a go. I got the green light from everybody." And next thing I know, it happened. And then he said, "Hey, we're going to announce it tonight." And I thought Chikara was going to announce it, but then she put it on her Twitter, and then that's when Twitter just exploded after that. And some of the responses that I got from the fans were hilarious. You have to check out that thread if you haven't seen it.
I haven't, and I definitely will. What do you think this will do for your career? Because a lot of people take bookings based off what it can do to further their career or a paycheck. Now, you're not a paycheck guy. We've talked about this many times on the podcast. But it's something like this, that nostalgia, and then you add something fresh in there like Jordynne Grace that may reignite nostalgia or move something forward. Do you expect anything after this as far as your career that might push you forward?
I mean, at this point in my career, I'm not really looking for anything to push my career, I would say. But I was like, I was pretty excited to do it. I mean, you just said it. Like, I'm not into like the whole, like, I like making money, but I'm not into it like as in I got to have a booking every single weekend and all that kind of stuff. I'm totally content on what I'm doing. But there's a few things I get really excited about, but I'm really excited about this because I know the fans are excited about it. And it's something I haven't done before. I haven't done the King of Trios. And then to do something like this with teaming up with Steiner again, which I haven't done since 2008 probably. So it's been 11 years since I've teamed with him. And then and Jordynne, just to have that extra, now you have a female in there, that's going to be pretty intriguing. And then I know, this could be something like, hey, maybe we'll do this at Impact or something like that. Of course, I'm going to push for something like that because it's so unique. And I think people would, really get a kick out of it. Everybody's like, nobody said it bad. Usually whenever somebody books something, there's always like, 90% positive, 10% negative. There's always a negative aspect of it. I I didn't see anything negative about this. Everybody's like, "Oh my god, I can't wait to see this. This is crazy." All this kind of stuff. So it's just going to be. I'm excited for it, and I mean, I want to go to the finals of the tournament and win it with Steiner and Jordynne. I think it would be great.
Have you talked to Jordynne or Steiner since the announcement?
No, I have not. I'll see Jordynne on like next week when we in New York when we film our next set of tapings. So we'll talk about it then. I know she made some sacrifices with some bookings that she had and stuff to make this event. She already had previous bookings and all that. But she wanted to be involved in it as well, just as badly. So it's exciting. Like I don't know how much more longer Steiner's going to actually wrestle and stuff like that. So it's good that we can do this before he eventually retires. I mean, it's inevitable. He's going to retire one day, and and I would love to see this on Impact. I really would. Don't know if it's going to happen, but it's just, man, it's a cool thing. I don't know how else to say it. Like, I see people are like tweeting memes and stuff like that where it's like, this is not a drill, like this is really happening, all that kind of stuff. And people talking about like, man, I hope this is on pay-per-view. I don't live nowhere near the area, but I want to be able to watch it. And it's cool that we're the first team that they announced. So I don't even know who else is in the tournament. I honestly do not.
We have to get Scott Steiner on the pod. Now, for some inside baseball, you and I at the very beginning made a conscious decision. Let's not get Scott on our podcast because you're so closely tied with him. And we didn't want it to be like, all right, everybody's just like, get Scotty back on, get Scotty. And we decided we're just not going to ask him. But now I feel like we should have him on just so he can tell us the mathematical equation of what your chances are of winning that tournament.
Well, he probably would give it to us. And I don't know if I've told this story before, but when we at last April in 2018, we had our pay-per-view. I think it was called Redemption. We scripted in a little promo with him and I where he did a math problem. And I asked him beforehand, I said, hey, can you do another one of your math problems? And he's like, yo, Petey, math's got to add up. I can't just do a math problem like on the fly. It's got to add up. And I'm like, oh, I seriously thought like he didn't put any thought into it, like when he was doing that promo. But apparently the math does add up. And I think like a professor from some state actually did the math on a board and said, yeah, the math adds up. Who knew, right? Who knew?
Okay, all right. And there is another promo out there from one of the pay-per-views where Scotty comes by and, he
does a little bit of math, yeah.
Your Canadian numbers or whatever he said. So
yeah, he tries to compare Canada and American math, which I mean, he was pretty right. I mean, with the however he put it, he used fractions and stuff. So it's out there.
We should reach out to Scotty and see if we can get him on one day. Anyways, moving on, we have a ton of fan questions too, so we're gonna sprinkle some in there. This one comes from Cody. Cody says, right now there are 3 names that could help Impact Wrestling. Could you see these names, Joey Ryan, Orange Cassidy, and Psycho Mike, become part of the Impact roster? Now, Joey Ryan, I don't think so. He's teasing a big announcement, and I just don't think it's Impact. Isn't Orange tied in with AEW or no?
I thought he was because he was in the Battle Royal, but then again, Tommy Dreamer was in that, and Tommy Dreamer, I was at the creative meeting at the Moore compound over the week, so not everybody's under contract with AEW. As you can see, they're announcing it like, as it goes and stuff. Like Luchasaurus, for example, I think he was just the one that most recently announced. And he's wrestled for Impact in Vegas. I've seen him. I'm a big fan of Luchasaurus.
And before you continue, there was another question that was asked by somebody, but that ties perfectly into what you're talking about. But the question was somewhere along the lines of, has AEW sniped any free agent talent that you guys were courting?
I'm sure. I mean, I don't know per se, but if there was no AEW, it makes and let's talk hypotheticals now because that's a good question. So I don't know. Okay, so let's throw that question aside. But since it's a podcast, let's pretend AEW never happened. Okay, all these people right now, where would they be going? Where would Cody still be with Ring of Honor, and or what? Would the Bucks still be with New Japan? Would Kenny Omega still be with New Japan, or would they, when their contract's up, would they go to WWE? Would they come to Impact? It's what happens if there was never any AEW. AEW, I look at it, obviously owned by Tony Khan, who's a billionaire, I'll say. I don't know how much he's worth. Okay, so a billionaire. So he's got money. And, it's hard to compete with with Tony Khan. It really is. So I really hope AEW succeeds. I hope it doesn't. Part of me hopes it doesn't come like WCW in the sense that it goes out of business after a while. Part of me does want it to become like WCW because, they gave WWE a run for their money, and a lot of the boys were making a lot of money, guaranteed contracts in WCW. So I would like to see, guys make their worth and stuff. That's part of me that wants to see them be like WCW, but I also want them to have longevity and be able to sustain that for, like you look at Impact, they've been around for 17 years now. And now I say that out loud, it's like people are like, wow, Impact's been around and going for 17 years.
Yeah.
That's longer than WCW when it was around. So I'd love to see AEW do that. It just gives more guys more places to work, and I'd love to see that.
Here's another one at SaveMe_RSK17. Do you guys think that AEW being a big success as it is / was, that it could, would, or should attract other networks back to wrestling? And I'll say this, Pete, when people ask me if I think Impact's going to another network, I truly believe that every major network right now is on hold with adding or even thinking about wrestling for at least another year, just to see what AEW does on TNT as far as ratings. If it's a success, I think the flood doors will open, and you'll see other networks slowly welcome in other wrestling networks or alliances into their network. If it fails, I think it's going to be 20 more years before you see another major wrestling organization on TV challenging WWE.
Yeah, and I mean there is other wrestling promotions on TV. They're just not on like huge networks like that. Like WWE has the Fox deal that's worth like $1 billion. So a lot of people think like, oh, AEW is coming for WWE, and okay, but honestly, WWE, their brand, they're a publicly traded company. They have their copyright, everything. They are not going to go to business anytime soon, even if the ratings are low. Like they have money for years to come, even if AEW blows them out of the water. It just the way they structure their system is just
they built their own economy.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great way to put it. They built their own economy, so they're good. I don't think they're worried about AEW. If they're not the biggest fish in the pond anymore, I think that's more of an ego thing rather than like oh, we're gonna go out of business. It's not like back in the Monday Night War days where Vince was gonna almost be out of business. It's nothing like that. It's a totally different ball game. But other companies are on networks. Like you have MLW. They're on. I don't even know what network they're on, but they have a TV contract. New Japan has an American TV contract. Yep. Then you have Ring of Honor. They're on their Sinclair Broadcasting, and so I mean it's there. They're not like TNT, like when
major.
WCW was there and stuff. I mean they still have television contracts where there's money involved and all that kind of stuff. And so I don't think other big networks are waiting. Is this the next wrestling boom like it was in the Attitude Era? I hope so. If AEW does well on TNT, then other networks might be like, what is this wrestling thing that we're just hearing of now, even though it's been around forever? So then they might be like, oh, what are some other wrestling companies we could look at and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully this is another wrestling boom.
Let's see here. If it's not too late, can you ask Petey what he thinks of the current state of the X division? It's been a hot topic on the message boards right now.
Hot topic for what?
Just the state of the X division.
Um, well, I mean, you have Rich Swann, who's, I mean,
Bona fide champion.
yeah, now he's the X Division champion right now, and like he's like just he had a match with Elgin, I believe. I don't even know if that aired yet, but he's wrestling with like some of the top guys and stuff. Um, Obviously, we have a limited roster, right? So it's not like the 205 Live where there's like I don't even know how many they have on there, but I mean, we got our Willie Max, we have our um, Rich Swans, Ace Austin's really making a move. I'm there every now and again if they need me. Um, so it's there. I think it's doing well. They're still putting out great matches and stuff like that. Um, and I mean, I don't know what else he's looking for with the state of the X division. I mean, if he's looking at like, hey, do we have the AJ Styles and stuff like that, like it wasn't from 2002 to through 8 or whatever? No, but I mean, we're building, our stars again and new stars and all that kind of stuff, and um, there's still exciting matches, and we still we're doing the X division thing. It's what Impact did. They made the X division, and we're still going along with it. And I think you're going to see, and I don't want to give anything away from storylines and stuff like that, but you'll see the X division on a brighter note coming up.
Can I say something that's a little bit critical, but I think I've said something about along these lines before about you in the X division?
What's that?
I think they do, now that you're part of the booking committee, I'll say this. I think you do a lousy job, and I'm going to say you, of highlighting you in the X division as kind of the grandfather of it right now, since you're the most seniority TNA X division wrestler on the roster right now. Maybe even, could I say, what, two-time champion? Is there a two-time X division champion on the roster right now?
I don't know. That's a good question.
But they do a poor job of highlighting, or I think they do a good job of using you to get over other talent. I think they do a poor job of really highlighting how important you are to that division with your longevity and your credentials.
Yeah, and I mean, part of that is me too. I mean, I'm not going to place the blame all on
No, I'm blaming
whoever.
you. I'm blaming you.
Yeah, because I'd much rather somebody else have a spot to shine on TV than me. Like I already have a job backstage. I mean, why? Like, I mean, I can go out there and wrestle, and I liked wrestling Ace Austin, and making sure that he had good matches and tried to get him over and all that kind of stuff. But no, I mean, I'll agree with you, Dennis. I mean, that is one thing, but I'm not going to be sitting there in the booking committee and being like, "Hey, I have a great storyline for me," because there's so many things. And I'm a backup plan. Like if they wanted to, they can make Team Canada again, or now they can make Jordynne Grace and Petey and Scott Steiner. Like there's a lot of things and a lot of paths you can go. And again, like you said, like the veteran of the X division, the grandfather, they can do a storyline with that and stuff. Like there's so much you can do. And I guess when you run out of ideas, then it's like, oh, okay, well now we got to do this with Petey.
Well, you don't necessarily have to go over to tell that story. I just think that there's a better way of highlighting just the fact that you're the most seniority member of the X division. You might be, I don't have the list in front of me, the only two-time X division champion on the roster. You were, you could say, the grandfather of that X division. You and many other guys, but you're part of that grandfather group.
Yeah, and I almost I had an idea in my head. I'm like, it seems like when somebody comes in and they have to, after they get through their enhanced matches, they're like, who's the next big challenge for them? It's like, oh, Petey, he's Mr. X Division or whatever because he's been there forever. And, and then they beat me and then go on to the next, maybe the X Division title or something right before the X Division title, whatever. I would like it if it was the other way around where like the new people coming in, they go through whoever, and then they can't beat me. You know what I mean? And then I just ride off into the sunset until the next new guy comes in or whatever the case. And then finally, when you get the right guy, they beat me or something like that. Just a little bit different, because I think when I come out now, people are like, oh, Petey's here to, have a good match with this guy, and like, so he could beat Petey and go on to the next level or whatever. And I'm totally fine with that. Not complaining at all. I just like wrestling, and being involved in it. And that could be part of my downfall too, that I've never cared as much about wins and losses. We've talked about that many times before.
Well, Jack off one of the Facebook pages wants to know, during your feud with Eli Drake for the Impact Championship, how close in the booking did you really come to actually winning the championship? I guess he's asking how close were they, Impact, to putting the championship on you?
No, not at all. I wasn't even supposed to be in that spot. And I think we've talked about a lot of times, like all these storylines I was involved in, I was never supposed to be in any of those storylines because people got injured or whatever the case may be. That was supposed to be a guy named Garza Jr. He was supposed to be getting a push, but then he showed up to those tapings and that pay-per-view with he needed surgery on his shoulder. Like he couldn't even move it. So they're like, all right, well, who are we going to put in there? And they put me in there because, we're in Canada. It makes sense, all this kind of stuff. And the night before, before I start the feud with Eli Drake, I had the X Division match, and the booking team afterwards, who was Sanjay at the time, said, "Man, we should have put the belt on you that night and just got it off you like later on that week." And they didn't. Just some things you see in hindsight, and you're like, "Man, we should have did this, we should have did that." But there was no way they were gonna take the belt off of Eli to give to me. They were just building him as a star. I think he just wrestled. Didn't he just wrestle Johnny Impact on that pay per view? I believe that's that was the Bound for Glory pay per view. And they it was a toss up. Like I would have much rather see on your big pay per view of the year, the good guy winning it, chasing the belt and all that kind of stuff. I would have liked to see Johnny Impact. It didn't happen. Fast forward a year, he was chasing it and he finally got it. So okay, it meant something. But no, there was no chance that Eli was going to drop the belt to me. I was kind of like that guy until he gets to the next guy.
All right, and we had a lot of questions about this, and I think I'll say this: a lot of Killer Cross questions. We're not going to talk about it on the podcast because you're kind of part of the management, the booking committee. We have a very close relationship with Killer Cross. It wouldn't be fair to talk about it based on your position and our friendship. So for now, until things get clearer, we have made a conscious decision not to talk about it. So
yeah, I mean, I don't want to. You and I both have had personal conversations with Killer Cross. We're not going to talk about that. That's we're not going to break confidentiality or his trust and all that kind of stuff. So we'll just see how it plays out. Pretty much.
That's all we can say now. Mike Gilbert, that was one of his questions. We kind of answered it there. He has two other ones. Are there any plans to partner with another Japanese promotion? His pick would be All Japan coming up in the future for Impact.
I don't know. I know there's where does Muda work now? I know Muda worked for All Japan when I used to work over there, but I don't even think he works over there anymore. But we have Muda coming over to on June 8th, I believe it is, a night you can't miss. Get it?
Yes.
Okay. Lame, right? Dad joke or something. But anyways, that's
I
super
thought it was
cool.
cute.
I mean, it's good play on words. But yeah, I mean, teaming up with a Japanese company, that could be something definitely doable. All Japan would be good. Trying to think of who else is over there that's still around. But yeah, I mean, teaming up, and we do that like within the United States and stuff like that. But when you start going over Japan, okay, then things get a little bit more complex because now you got travel involved. I know that Kushida, who's currently in NXT, he came from All Japan, and he actually trained at the Q&amp wrestling school where I trained. Scott Demore, he came over here when he was a young boy. They kind of did like a trade swap or whatever. We did that a lot with the Q&amp wrestling school. Kushida came over here, trained with, lived with Demore, or whoever. Demore put him up in an apartment and got him bookings and all that kind of stuff. And I've wrestled him many times, and he's awesome. And then he went back over there and became a big star, went to New Japan, and now he's, in NXT. So, yeah, I mean, we've teamed up with different Japanese companies before, and that'd be something awesome to do in the future.
When are you coming to Southern California? Was his third question.
Southern California. I don't know.
All right.
I don't know.
Colby Cooper wants to know, does the emergence of AEW change the game plan for Impact Wrestling going forward?
I would say yes and no. I mean, when it comes to our writing and stuff, no. I mean, we're still going to do things the way we do things. But as for, before, where did everybody used to work? Like, it was either WWE, Impact, Ring of Honor. Those are pretty much your. Now you throw another company in the mix. Now you have another option to go to. So it just means like, okay, a lot more talent spread more thin across there. So you have to either more people have to become wrestlers, or the talent's going to be more spread across the board.
All right. And Thomas Ford wants to know, will we be seeing an Impact AEW partnership in the foreseeable future? I'm going to say no, but I'll let you answer that.
That's a good question. I mean, it's always a possibility. Like I always wondered, because we have a partnership with AAA, through Conan and stuff like that. And I feel like, if I'm correct, AEW also has a partnership with AAA. I think aren't they like the Young Bucks, like the AAA champions right now, because they retained it from the Lucha Brothers?
I believe so.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know how all that's going to work. I really don't. If I knew, then we wouldn't be having this conversation, I guess. But I mean, AEW guys are under contract. I don't know what their contracts state. I know, guys under our contract, I mean, it's up to Impact where they can and can't work, kind of deal. So, I mean, to be determined.
Will we be seeing the War Kings full-time in Impact anytime soon?
What's the War Kings?
I believe it's Jax Dane and Crimson.
Were they in they weren't on our Impact show, so unless they were like on one of our Twitch shows, because sometimes we use for our Twitch shows and those types of shows, we'll use talent that's like kind of local in the area, maybe previous Impact talent. So not that I'm aware of, to answer his question.
Okay. There was one good question from Randy Adams that it started out snarky, and I guess I'll read it, but follow me through it and don't, because it started out with, do you guys actually plan on signing people instead of giving them incentive to leave over crappy handshake deals? Then I kind of jumped in on them for being a little snarky with his questions, and he comes back with a little bit of, let's see here. From a fan's perspective, it doesn't seem like Impact has a lot to offer talent to keep them around from leaving. And I kind of said, well, look at it like this. And I'll tell you what my reply to him was. You can agree, disagree, or expound was. All right, so you may not think Impact has a lot to offer, but outside of WWE and AEW, Impact is probably the number 3 product right now. Close second would be Ring of Honor, or you could flip-flop them. Either way, they're 3A and 3B right there, right? The number 3 product on the market. Sure, the money's low. There's no arguing that. But talent works for Impact maybe one weekend every few months. Outside of that, maybe a Twitch special here and there. So that frees up most of their months to take other bookings. Impact helps them find other bookings outside of that. So you have a company where you can work anywhere else almost. Even I think Sami Callihan's on MLW, for God's sakes. So you can theoretically work for another televised product if it's cleared. So why wouldn't you want to work with Impact where your dates are so low you still get paid and they help you find other gigs?
Yeah, and I mean it's all what the wrestler wants. Like I remember when I first started with Impact, right? Prior to Impact, I'm making like next to nothing working the independent circuit, right? I got an Impact. Well, now guess what? Even like our schedule is a little bit heavier, but guess what? Now, you know, people will pay me more, obviously, to wrestle indie shows. So now I'm making more money, even though, and there was sometimes I was making more money on the indies than like per show than on at Impact. So I could sell merchandise and all this kind of stuff. And I don't want to get into all the details, but it's why wouldn't you want to work for Impact? It's not like okay, uh, like we're in the business now of making stars out of people. You know, it was different back when I started there. A lot of people they recognized were like ex WWE guys and all that kind of stuff. And okay, sure. Ring of Honor was more about like making stars and stuff like that. Well, that's the business we're kind of in now because we're making a lot of our own stars, guys like I'm just trying to think like the North and Jordynne Grace and Killer Cross, and a lot of people are like, oh, they had an indie following and stuff like that. But yeah, but now they're like main players on our, and that's I'm not trying to exclude anybody, but I'm just naming a few off the top of my head. And now they're stars on our company, and like they can go out and make more money doing independent stuff as well with our light schedule. So it depends as a wrestler what you want. You have to do your own math. You have to be like, oh, okay, is it more beneficial for me to do work here, or is it beneficial for me to work here with limited dates and I can do this and have more free will and all this kind of stuff? So it's up to the person. Like, Impact and AEW and WWE, all our contracts look different, and it depends what somebody wants to do with their life, pretty much.
The one thing I notice about Impact fans is they care, and not to say management doesn't care, but the management understands that, as you said, they're in a position of building stars, and then a star becomes expensive, you have to let them go. It's almost like a Pittsburgh Pirates back in the day, maybe a little bit of the Houston Astros, where they have a young talent, they baby him, they bring him up, they turn him into a budding star, and then he leaves for a bigger contract for the New York Yankees, and they're okay with it. That's their position. That's kind of how I feel Impact Management is like, look, we take just as much pride in building someone up and then having someone like WWE want these guys, which attracts more younger people to come to that company, where Impact fans don't kind of see it or understand it, and they think these guys are leaving, this company, and they get mad. But yet management understands, look, we're attracting younger talent by making stars and them going off and making more money elsewhere.
Yeah, and going back to the first conversation we had about will WWE ever go to business, and because of AEW, no, they have just built a system that's so they built their own economy, like you said. Like Impact doesn't have that yet, like they don't have their own economy built within itself, and no company does except for WWE right now. So people, it's almost like job security. Like people are like, oh, I'll go to WWE because of I know if I'm on the roster, then I work every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then I train at the school or on the performance center Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Like it's almost like a set routine. And sometimes people want that, and it's good to have. Does it mean you're going to make it? Absolutely not.
All right, let's hit a quick ad real quick. Look, one of our long-running sponsors here has been Blue Chew, and we are proud to keep them around every month, and that's because of you, the fans. So head over to Blue Chew, use the promo code Perspective, and PD will personally send you out a free sample.
Yeah, I mean, no strings attached. Well, one tiny string attached. I don't pay for shipping, so you pay the $5 for the shipping and handling. All you have to do is use the promo code Perspective, and I will send it to you. And you can take it whenever your little heart desires.
Look, I don't care if you take it, you don't take it, you give it away. Look, your significant other will thank you at the end of the night. Stop being a jobber. Stop being like Petey Williams and getting beat by Ace Austin every single night. Sorry, Pete.
No, it's not. Hey, I don't take Blue Chew in the ring. And tell me, I'll put people over in the ring. I don't want to take it before the ring, but let me tell you what. Once we get off this podcast, and I might throw a little Blue Chew in my mouth and
All night
say hello
long?
to my lady. Yeah, all night long,
Ooh.
pulling all nighter.
Are you going to give her the Canadian Destroyer?
Like multiple Canadian destroyers.
Oh, so you're going to be an indie show.
No, I'm not going to be a main event of WrestleMania.
Main event. Anyways, Blue Chew is made with the same active ingredients as Cialis and Viagra, so you know it works. It's chewable, so it works twice as fast. It's made in America, so it's cheaper. You can get it sent to you, so there's no awkward doctor's visits. You look, you know it works because they have been around for a long time now, as my puppy just walked in the room. So go to bluechew.com, use the offer code perspective, make Petey and I some money. Look, we love to give our shirt sales to charity, but we're keeping the Blue Chew money. That's just how we roll. We feel dirty giving
Blue Chew money to charity.
Yeah.
Where'd you get all this money from? Well, funny story, kid.
It's penis pills.
Yeah, right.
All right. You won't understand it until you're older, but it's penis pills. Anyways, go to bluechew.com, use a promo code perspective. That money funds the radio show, which myself and Russ McCall do. So we give it back to you guys in entertainment. And finally, the final ad before we get back into the show and wrap it up here in a second. We got a lot more to talk about. Fightful.com. We have a great working relationship with Sean Ross Sapp and Fightful, where they get the podcast a day early. So you're listening to it right now on Fightful. That's why Fightful has been breaking news for 3 years now. They've launched a premium service, which is great. I'm a member of that. They bring you dozens of podcasts each month, from 205 Live to NXT, NXT UK, Impact, by the way. Maybe you'll get a shout out on their show one day, Pete, and make it to the big time.
I hope so.
Ring of Honor, New Japan, NWA. They have Q&A shows, alternative and dark match commentary, and they're breaking news all the time. So go to Fightful.com. You get this podcast a day early, and then it reverts over to our regular feed at WrestlingPerspectivePodcast.com, where you can go over there and subscribe. Anyways, now let's get back to your last week. You, PD, spent a whole week at the Scott D'Amore compound doing your first creative meetings.
Yeah, so, I arrived with Jimmy Jacobs, just to kind of, and I'm not getting into too much detail about storyline writing and stuff like that, but
we're
just
talking
so
process.
What's that?
We're mainly gonna talk the process of how it breaks down, at least through this one.
Yeah, so you have, the two VPs there, Don Callis and Scott D'Amore, and then you have, as well, Tommy Dreamer, who's on the creative team, and then Jimmy Jacobs, and then you have myself. And we get there, and now I've been in like rewrites before where people get injured, and we have to like figure out like, hey, what do we do tomorrow, kind of deal, like rush it. But this is like full, like you have a blank drawing board, and we get there, and I don't know the process. I don't know how they start, finish, all that kind of stuff. So I'm kind of learning as I go, and Jimmy does a really good job of kind of educating me. And Jimmy's really, really good and fantastic at everything. So we get there, and pretty much, we just start off. We know the matches, or most of the matches that we're building towards for Slammiversary, and kind of what Slammiversary is going to look like after that. And then you just kind of go from there. You kind of look at, okay, you have this storyline with the world title, we'll say, or the Impact Championship. And, we got 4 weeks of TV. What are we going to do to build up towards Slammiversary? How's that going to look? And then you do the same thing with a lot of other, storylines and stuff like that. And then you have to kind of throw in other little minor storylines and everything. And then once that's all said and done, which takes like almost like I like to equate it to, it takes 1 day to write one show. We'll just put it that way. But we were trying to do 4 at once and all that kind of stuff. So it would be a little bit different, like kind of what they do in other like Raw or SmackDown or something like that. So you kind of get what everything looks like. There might be some holes in there, and then you kind of like structure, your 2-hour television show after that of where your breaks are and everything. So you're just kind of plucking away at it over time. And there's a lot of what is that called? Like writer's block, I want to say, like where you'll sit there and you'll kind of hit a snag and you're like, and you just like stare at the board forever. And there's like multiple boards that you're looking at, and you're just going like, where do we go from here, kind of deal. And it's a slow process and it's very difficult. I mean, I challenge somebody to that has never written wrestling television before to do it without a hitch. I mean, it's very challenging, but it was also very fun. Like I said, like when I'm not wrestling, I am not doing anything with wrestling, but that was 4 days of just, man, your life's wrestling for 4 days. And it was like relaxing at the same time. It consumes a lot on your mind. Like it's pretty draining because you're constantly thinking about creative ideas.
Do you guys set up Plan B storylines just in case someone may not be able to make it or he may get injured, or is that not even a consideration?
Well, we try to iron out all those details beforehand because there was some people that like okay, yeah, this person's gonna come. Oh, he said he can or whatever, and this booking conflict, whatever. So you kind of iron that out. But then in the meantime, if something happens between now and then, we'd have to iron that out, obviously. But like I know when we wrote one thing, there was like kind of some like plan A, plan B storylines, and we pretty much settle on one. And you got to remember, I'm always backup. It was funny up until the very last day, at like the last minute, I was on one of the shows, and then we kind of were like, oh, that doesn't really make sense. Then I wasn't on one of the shows, and I'm like, okay, cool. Like it's okay if I'm not on that show, kind of deal. So things it's constantly evolving and changing and stuff like that. And as we speak, things could get changed right now. Like for everybody knows that at Slamversary, or not Slamversary, the last pay-per-view, Rebellion, Brian Cage got hurt. So you're like, okay, your world champion, Impact champion is hurt right now. Like, is he going to be 100% by July 7th at Slamversary? Like, these are all things you got to take into account.
Is there an injury update you can tell us?
You'll get one on Friday.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, we're constantly doing injury updates with on Impact with Brian Cage. So you'll hear from him. Like I said, I don't want to give anything away.
How many hours a day do you guys do this? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it's like a all day process. Like, it's all day. Like we'll get up and then grab some coffee and then, okay, we're right at work. Actually, before coffee, the board's already set up and you're already working. And then, you work for a little bit, like 90 minutes or something, take a 15-minute break, kind of decompress or whatever. And then obviously break for dinner. And then we go until, I'm trying to think, anywhere from like midnight to 2 a.m, depending on where we're at and stuff and the progress we feel that we made and where we're at. So
now,
yeah.
Between you and I, you were nervous about this. You've never done anything quite like this. Going into it, you were a little bit nervous. Did you contribute anything that will make it on TV? You'll have to tell us what, but did you actually contribute anything, or were you, the quiet guy in the corner the whole week and trying to learn?
Oh, no. I contributed. Maybe not as much as I would like because, like, again, I didn't know the steps. Like, if I were to go back there next time, I kind of know how the steps would go. And, and also, like, you're learning the steps. You don't want to stop the flow of the process. Like, okay, who usually does this job? Who usually does this job? And all that kind of stuff. You just kind of learn as you go. So sometimes you have to be a fly on the wall, but then sometimes, you're actively trying to figure some stuff out. So, no, yeah, there's definitely stuff that will be on TV that I contributed. Yeah, definitely.
Now, in my mind, I just envision you guys sitting around a room and like old school wrestling playing on the TV or something like that, or you guys start talking, and then you go down the rabbit hole, and you're like, oh no, I got this tape. Watch this match from 1987. Did anything cool like that happen?
Yeah, because then sometimes when we're talking about a storyline of potential, somebody might say something like, "Hey, remember that time?" But it's always wrestling related. But then we might say something like, "Yeah, man, something like that hasn't been done with like in a while." Or what if they? I wish they would have done it like this. Well, we can do it like this. All this kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, obviously some stories are being told because some stuff just like if you're sitting at work at any other job, you're talking shop, and then something will remind you of something else. Yeah, definitely. It's not like we're all sitting there in suits and ties being serious all the time. Obviously, to get the creative juices flowing, you have to kind of think about other things because then you never know. And I don't mind when my ideas get shut down because a lot of my ideas got shut down, which is fine. Everybody's ideas get shut down, but I'm okay with it because it might trigger off something in somebody else's mind that I thought they might have not have had if I didn't say something. So I'm totally okay with it. They can shoot down my ideas all day long. But I know it might trigger something like something else off or whatever that was a good idea. So you have to kind of just I don't know, go with the flow and
Have a thick skin.
oh yeah, that's it. Like I have like the thickest skin. I feel like
Did they
it doesn't
tease you?
matter.
Did they tease? Come on, Petey, that's a horrible idea. What are you thinking?
Oh yeah. I mean, not all the time, but like, oh yeah. But then, sometimes I'll shoot out an idea that's so off the wall ridiculous. And obviously, like maybe it's something you can't do on TV or whatever. But then I'll remind them of something that you actually can do on TV.
All right. Well, listen, I got one more quick thing I want to bring up. We'll talk about AEW and Double or Nothing and the fallout and news from that on the next podcast. But one of your old buddies stepped in it. And normally I try not to like publicly speak because he was kind of a friend of mine, right? This week, Vince Russo comes out and now here's the thing. Vince is a friend. I've helped him many times. We tweeted back and forth, even though in text and talked, even though he tried to talk me out of doing a wrestling podcast, and now he does like 5 of them. This week he came out and basically bashed all the marks like he normally does, and goes off and says he has, proof that AEW and WWE are in bed together and they're working everybody in the industry. And whatever conspiracy theories, you can manufacture those and make points and pull fake facts out of the air and make them sound real. I get that, but then he used the WWE ECW being in bed together as a prime example. Now, Pete, first of all, I think Vince Russo is an idiot. I truly believe this. He created a conspiracy in my mind to make money because he points to ECW, but the problem with that was, WWE was giving him money, ECW was sending them talent in return. In the case of WWE and AEW, AEW is taking a lot of their top talent, and they're not being nice. Shots are being fired. I think it's in the end, it's going to be great for WWE because it's going to make them try harder and do better to keep their fans around. But there's no way AEW and WWE are in bed together, right? No way.
I don't think so. I don't know how that would work because you have them on TNT, and then you have WWE on USA going to Fox and all that kind of stuff. They're separate networks unless. I don't know if that would be breach of contract if they're in bed together and then them showing up on opposite TVs. I mean, I don't see it. And the funny thing is about people jumping ship. Everybody always thinks the grass is greener on the other side. Like Ambrose probably thought, like, yeah, I can do my own thing, and okay, if that's what he wants is freedom. Okay, great. But a lot of people think like the grass is always like greener on the other side, but it's not. Like I've seen so many people like, I want to go to WWE. I want to go to that's their goal in life. And then what do? They quit there because they don't like it there or whatever. So, you have to just be content with what you want to do and get out of this wrestling business and do that. I mean, that's why I'm so content with what I've done, because I know what I wanted out of this business, and I'm doing it.
Yeah. Well, here's the kicker, by the way. Vince Russo then paints a painting of the AEW sign, and the W at the end is the WWE, and he calls it, All Elite, Entertainment or something, whatever. And now he's trying to sell that on eBay. So right there tells you his true intentions, and that kind of stuff irks me when you do that. And we talk many times about how, as a fan, I'm a fan first and a wrestling podcaster second. I've never, tried to pretend to be something otherwise. But when wrestlers, talent, bookers insult the fans, the same fans that buy their merchandise, that watch the TV, it just bugs me beyond. It ticks me off.
Well, I mean, Russo, I've worked under Russo before. Russo, I almost want to see him write for Hollywood. I think he would be better like at a sitcom show or something like that, because, he actually is like a good storyteller when it doesn't come to wrestling. And that's why, like, he's good at that aspect. When it comes to like, hey, can you translate that in the ring? I feel like that's not his strong suit, because he doesn't care about the wrestling aspect of it. He just wants to tell the stories backstage, all that kind of stuff. So that's his strong suit. And that's what he's doing now. Like, he's telling his own little story, and if people are biting on it, great. But I think Russo has a job in like Hollywood. I really do.
All right. Listen, don't forget, head over to Ringside Wrestling app. It's a great app. You can get chat rooms, watch independent wrestling. Our podcast is there. There's live videos. I'll be doing something this weekend with the app. So Ringside Wrestling. And my favorite part is the chat room. You can go in there, and there's always people there chatting. And this isn't something we get paid to talk about. I just really like the app a lot. Josh Matthews is part of it. We'll be getting Madison Rain on, by the way. She followed me, Pete.
Whoa, I don't even think she follows me. This is gonna be another Desmond Xavier thing. Yeah, but we'll have Madison Rain on. She's awesome. I really like her.
Yes. Better than Josh. We both agree we like her better than Josh Matthews, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, she talks to me more
yeah.
Than Josh does, but usually when Josh is around, so maybe Josh is jealous. I don't know.
Maybe she'll know who I am now backstage.
Yeah, maybe, right. Yeah, but that's where we're at. So look for we'll just have to lock down a date with her and
lock down
get
a
her
date.
Lined up. Yep, we're locking down dates.
That's right.
This has gotten really creepy. Should we just go back to Blue Chew right now?
No,
no, definitely not.
No, that's the wrong ad to go back to.
Yeah. What for apparel?
Buy a shirt.
Yeah.
Extra
Rainbow
large.
Connection. All right, great.
So that's this week's podcast. We're going to wrap it up. Normally, we would probably go another 10, 20 minutes, but it's super late. You have life in the morning. I have life in the morning, but we want to make sure we got together to pop this out for us fans. And guys, don't forget, Pete, where can they find you? Are you going to be at any shows, by the way?
Yeah, we got, you can find me on Twitter at Petey Williams. We're coming up to Queens, New York for our Impact tapings Thursday and Friday, June 6th and 7th. And then Dennis and I will be in, I don't even know what the venue is right now, but we'll be at Clash Wrestling. So you can follow Clash Wrestling on Twitter as well.
Raven will be there.
June 8th.
Raven will be there.
Yes, Raven will be there, and I'll be involved in a ladder match. So if you want to see me fall off a ladder, that's pretty cool. You can find me falling off ladders on June 8th.
You're not going to take a ladder bump.
What? Oh, I'll show you. And then in October 5th and 6th, I believe it is, somewhere around that Friday and Saturday, that's where the King of Trios is going to be in Chicago. So I don't know if tickets are available yet, but if they do, pick up those, because that's probably going to be sold out. That's in Reading, Pennsylvania. You
probably listen to this podcast on multiple platforms, whether it's Detroit Sports or Fightful.com. But if you're listening, do us a favor, hunt out our podcast feed, subscribe to the show. Depending on whether you listen to it on iTunes or Stitcher, give it a thumbs up, rate it 5 stars, leave a comment. It helps us out. You can go to WrestlingPerspectivePodcast.com. All the links are there. There's an email page if you want to email questions. Make sure it makes it onto the show. There might even be a phone number on there that you can call and leave a voicemail, and we'll start getting back to doing that a little bit. What are you clicking? I'm wrapping up the show and you're clicking?
Sorry, man.
That's Bush League.
Pop. It's my pop. Okay, go.
That's Mike Quackenbush League, okay?
No, Mike Quacken. I see it. Mike Quackenbush is not Bush League.
No, but I just had to fit the name in. Anyways.
Mike Quackenbush League. What? Okay.
You like that, don't you?
Yeah.
I was pretty proud of that one. I'm not going to lie. Anyways, go to WrestlingPerspectivePodcast.com. Click the links. Be part of the show. whatforapparel.com/WPP, Rainbow Connections, where all the proceeds go, BlueChew.com, use the promo code Perspective, Ringside Wrestling app. Guys, this is this week's podcast. Pete, I'm sure I'll see you next week now.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
All right, have a good night, guys.